Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Honorable Crypto Podcast. This is your host, Dylan Bloom, and today I'm going to be talking about Monero. So we're going to be talking about the purpose of Monero, the technology behind it, and we're going to be comparing it to Bitcoin and talking about a couple more things. So stay tuned for that. Alright, I'm just going to start off this episode by giving a quick shout out to Brave Browser, as that's the browser that I'm using to read this off of. Brave Browser is backed by Basic Attention Token. It is honestly the fastest browser I've ever seen. It comes with built-in ad block, tracker block, so Facebook tracking you as you go to other websites. Can't happen anymore because it comes in with the built-in tracker block, built-in HTTPS everywhere kind of plugin where you will automatically be sent to the secure site of a place, so no more HTTP. It will always be HTTPS if that is available, which most sites it is. I know on honorablecrypto.com it is, so go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description for Brave. Please do check that out because it supports me as well. I do get a small amount of reward for anyone that signs up through Brave and tries it for a month, so why not do that? Support Honorable Crypto and Crypto Smart Reviews on YouTube. Alright, so let's get into Monero now. So, what is the purpose of Monero? Well, Monero is kind of similar to I guess I'd say it's similar to Bitcoin in a lot of measures, but it's a little bit different. So, similar to Bitcoin, it is a coin that's designed to be a cryptocurrency, be sent from peer to peer, and they do that through a complicated way that allows the transactions to be private. So if you've ever heard the term privacy coin, Monero fits into that category. So let's talk a little bit more about Monero. Monero is a cryptocurrency centered around censorship resistance and privacy. Transactions with many coins today are traceable throughout the entire world, but Monero seeks to change that. Monero is electronic cash that allows fast, inexpensive payments to and from anywhere in the world. Alright, how do they do this? How do they make this private? So, transactions with Bitcoin go a little bit something like this. A receiver gives a sender their public key. Sender inputs the receiver's public key. Sender signs the transaction with their private key. So, never give your private key to anybody because they are now allowed to send stuff with you. So, make sure you keep that in a ledger or a Trezor and not on an exchange, because then the exchange holds your private key. Anyways, back to Bitcoin. So then the transaction is sent to miners that mine this transaction and encrypt it onto the blockchain using their processing power. This transaction is kept on the blockchain and is publicly verified. So this type of transaction is encrypted and it is a secure way to send money, but it is not private, and that's what Monero changes. So with Bitcoin, the transaction is actually very much public. It's just you'd have to know a lot of stuff to be able to kind of trace down what's going on, but smart people could definitely do that. So now with Monero, here's what a transaction looks like, alright? So the receiver gives the sender a public key, so a public spend key, and then a sender inputs that public spend key. Sender signs that transaction with their own private spend key. So this now creates this thing called a key image. So the key image is what is sent to the blockchain, and that is going to be a one-time destination address created to kind of be that middleman before we send that to the ring signature, which we'll talk about that next. So the key image is where the funds get sent, so the Monero gets sent to this key image that was created, and then they will be encrypted and distributed through the ring CT system. And what the ring CT system does is that it's going to basically send a whole bunch of signals out everywhere. So it's going to send these, like a little bit of Monero to a bunch of different places, and from that we'll send that to the receiver. So it's obviously a very complicated process. It's obviously very much safer than the Bitcoin, or not safer, but more private, because the person that someone wanted to track down what is being sent and what is being received, someone would have to go through huge measures, and like it's not even possible to do that. So clearly this is a more private way to send a transaction. So that's the big thing behind Monero, is these private transactions. Now, what else do we need to know about Monero? Well, we'll talk about mining a little bit, because they do have a special kind of system for miners. So first, let's define a couple things. So proof of work, that's a way of validating transactions that involves computer processing power solving algorithmic puzzles to encrypt and validate transactions for cryptocurrencies on the blockchain. So someone sends a transaction, proof of work can be used to encrypt that transaction and put it on the blockchain on the public ledger. Now, SHA-256 is a commonly used version of proof of work, so that's the algorithm. Bitcoin uses SHA-256, and Monero actually uses something called CryptoNight. So CryptoNight is a different algorithm, but it's also proof of work. And because Monero is a fork of Bytecoin, it's going to use CryptoNight, because that's what was on Bytecoin. Now, what is a hash rate? Well, a hash rate is the speed at which a computer or an ASIC, which we'll talk about in a second, can mine these algorithms. So a CPU is a computer mining software without using a graphic processing unit. GPU, obviously, using a graphic processing unit. And an ASIC is an application-specific integrated circuit. So an ASIC is going to be used specifically for the purpose of mining a proof of work. So mining Bitcoin, we already talked about, SHA-256. Now mining Bitcoin has very high difficulty. So there's a lot of competition, because Bitcoin is so valuable, so high up there, that we're going to have a really high difficulty. The blocks of Bitcoin are limited as well to a certain number of megabytes. Don't know off the top of my head. And Bitcoin dramatically favors ASICs. So there are people with warehouses full of these things. That's what made John McAfee so rich. I guess other than McAfee antivirus and stuff, but that's what he's doing now to maintain his status of being so rich. There are these mining pools, huge mining pools like Hashflare. There we go. Hashflare. So Hashflare is like a huge mining pool with a bunch of ASICs set up that you can essentially rent out or something like that. So mining Monero now, on the other hand, we said that was CryptoNight. Now Monero has a much lower difficulty than Bitcoin to mine, and that's because of how CryptoNight works. And with Monero, we have not really a level playing field, but they're going to dramatically favor GPU and CPU compared to ASICs, because ASICs can't properly mine CryptoNight, although recently they did, and that they took over the network, but we'll get into that with the fork later too. So let's talk a little bit about scalability and block size. So scalability is the ability of an asset to perform under increasing workloads. High scalability means an asset will maintain or increase performance with higher volume of transactions. And block size is the amount of transactions that can fit on a block on a blockchain. So there are reasons to limit it, reasons not to limit it, but theoretically increasing the block size will increase the scalability, but there's a lot more that comes into play than just that. Alright, so with block size, Monero actually has an interesting way of dealing with block size. So the next created Monero block will take the last 100 blocks into account and take the median size of a block and double that. So typically you're never going to fill up a Monero block, because they're going to be twice as big as the median of the last 100 blocks. And with Bitcoin, they are limited to, let me check, I think it's 1 megabyte. Let me check in the Brave browser here real quick. Yes, 1 megabyte. And that wasn't the Brave browser being slow, that was me. So, alright, now, scalability. So Monero has a lot more involved with scalability than just the block size. So having unlimited block size does help the scalability of Monero, but because they are very complicated transactions that have to go through the key image creation, the ring CT, and a lot of different stuff to get sent from just the sender to receiver, we're going to have a problem with block size, which that's kind of just a downside that most people deal with Monero because of the privacy aspect of it. So I mean, it's something you can expect when you have transactions that are so complicated, which is honestly the main purpose of Monero. So you can't really fault them for that. But they have been using dynamic block size, so that changes to fit needs of the transactions, but at the same time, transactions are big. So scalability is a little bit limited with Monero, but they have been trying their best to keep up with it. Alright, so let's talk a little bit more about XMR, which is the regular Monero. So if you forgot, we were talking about a couple keys earlier, public keys, private keys. Now, public keys are what you give someone when you want them to send you crypto. Private keys are what you put in when you want to send someone crypto. So that's like your signature. So Monero has a little bit of a different take on this. I call it the XMR keychain. I don't know what other people call it. I just like to put names to things. So XMR has two types of keys on the keychain, and so we'll have four in total because both of these types have public and private. So view keys, that's the first type here. So view keys are the ones that hiddenly send XMR. So these are generated as the one-time stealth address that's created to allow for complete privacy. Public view key is made by receiver and later scanned by the sender's view key. So that's how we get that transaction to go through. Now spend keys are generated after view keys to hide the identity of the sender. So the public spend key promotes the ring CT that we talked about and verifies the signatures of the key images that were created with view keys. So the private view key is the one that actually signs the key image. So now we've talked about four different types of keys, right? So public, private view, public, private, spend. So what exactly is a key image? I've mentioned this a couple times. So the key image is the way that Monero verifies that we're not going against the double spending problem. So we're making sure that we're not double spending, but we're also allowing for completely private transactions. So if we just had a private transaction, we would never know if someone double spent because we couldn't keep track of that. But with a key image, that transaction, that Monero has been accounted for in the key image. We still don't know where it's coming from, where it's going, but we know that it's not going to two different places, if that makes sense. So what is a privacy coin, which is what Monero is? These are a subset of cryptocurrency, which are designed for the sole purpose making transactions private. So the identity of the sender and receiver are completely secure. Nobody knows, nobody can view their wallet size or the transactions that are going out from them, coming into them. So why is this important? Why can't people just use Bitcoin? I mean, it's encrypted, it's secure, it's safe to hold Bitcoin. Why can't people just use that? Well, there are a couple of different scenarios I can think of that you definitely want to use something similar to Monero if you're going to be using cryptocurrency. So the most common problem with Bitcoin is people can peek behind your Bitcoin bank account, see how much you have there, see what transactions are coming in and going out. So imagine you're a business owner using cryptocurrency. Do you want employees to know when you pay them with Bitcoin how much you have as a company? Probably not. What about people that are selling or buying? Do you want them to know? Probably not. So you don't want anybody to know these details about your business because you don't want people to know how much you're making, how much you're sending out, how much you're spending on stuff you're taking in. So let's say you run a food business. You don't want one group of vendors to know how much you're spending with this other group of vendors because they might be like, hey, they're paying them more than they're paying us. And you don't want that to happen because then they can take advantage of that and they can raise their prices. You'll have to pay them because that's how that works. All right, how about if you're doing a business transaction with someone by shopping online. Maybe you want to use this person multiple times. Maybe you're buying Pokemon cards from them. And I don't know, Pokemon cards, I used to play with those. So maybe you're buying Pokemon cards from someone on eBay, all right? And you agree that Bitcoin will work. So you pay them their Bitcoin, you get Pokemon cards sent to you, everything's good. Now, how about you come back the next time to buy, and they say, dude, you have tons of money locked up in this Bitcoin bank account, or Bitcoin wallet, Why are you only paying me this much for this Pokemon card? Will you pay me this much? You don't want that kind of thing to happen. So you don't want to be kind of liable to pay more because someone sees that you're rich. So that's on the other end of the spectrum also. You don't want someone to know that you're poor. I mean, nobody wants people to know that. You don't want people to know how much money you have in your bank. So why should cryptocurrency be any different? So that's what Monero is vision behind. That's what all these privacy coins do. They want to make sure that people don't know how much you own, people don't know how much you're sending in or getting, people don't know how much you're sending out. So what are some of the wallets we can use with XMR? So right now, XMR has a web wallet designed by Riccardo Spagani, or Fluffy Pony. This is located at mymonero.com. You can go to that I'll provide a link to that and the other stuff that I'm talking about as well in the description. So this wallet is safe to use, but it's the least secure of the three that I'll mention. So anytime you have something on the web, that's probably the most easily accessible. You can leave it except in an exchange. So they do also have a desktop wallet developed by their own team. This is much more secure, still not quite as secure as you can get, because, if you lose your computer and you don't have the key phrase, then you can't get access back to those, but assuming you're smart and download your key phrase, you should be fine. But also, people can have some sort of keylogger or something that they can put on your computer, which would not be good for you either. So if you want to be completely secure, you got to get a Ledger Nano S, and I will have a link to that also in the description of this video. So up until this point, there's been no word as to whether there was support coming, but recently on Doug Polk's podcast, Riccardo said this: "We are on Ledger already if you use the dev kit. I saw some commits happening today, fix a couple small issues. I'd hope that probably alongside Monero 12.1 release, there will be official Ledger support." So that's huge news for anybody holding Monero, because now you might be able to hold it on a hardware wallet like the Ledger Nano S. So that would be huge. Alright, where can you go to get Monero? So, easiest way is to use Binance, or maybe not easiest, but most secure, safest way is to use Binance. So, if you want to get there from Ethereum, you can just use Binance. If you want to get there from cash, you're going to have to go through a fiat gateway like Coinbase. That's just a simple one to use. So, click the link in the description to go to Coinbase, input your $100 USD or whatever, send it over to Binance, or buy ETH with it, I guess. Send it over to Binance and then go to the trading pairs, trade your Ethereum for XMR, and there you go. And then transfer it to the Ledger Nano S that you just bought using the link in the description. Alright, so we've been talking a lot about Monero and a little bit about Bitcoin, so why don't we just officially compare them? So, Bitcoin, released in 2009, originates obviously from its own blockchain as the first one. So the type of mining algorithm we already talked about was proof of work, SHA-256. Now, name recognizability for Bitcoin is obviously the highest of any of the cryptocurrencies we've seen right now. I'd say Ethereum's getting there, but Bitcoin's definitely the most well-known. If you ask someone off the street, what is cryptocurrency, they might say, I don't know, but if you say, what is Bitcoin, they'll definitely know what Bitcoin is. So that name recognizability is there with Bitcoin. So what's the purpose of Bitcoin? It's a digital currency, more focused on store of value, I would say. So you're not going to be doing a ton of transactions with Bitcoin because they take a pretty long time. Although with Lightning, you never know. Scalability of Bitcoin, relatively low. Transactions are publicly verifiable, kept on a public ledger, which is on the blockchain. Does Bitcoin prevent double spends? Yes, obviously. Does it support forks? Yes, obviously also on that. Now, Monero, on the other hand, released 2014 as a fork off of Bytecoin's blockchain. So their mining algorithm is CryptoNight. Proof of work again. So CryptoNight, although ASICs do the best on it, compared to what you'd make with an ASIC on blockchain, on Bitcoin, you're going to be using your ASIC to mine Bitcoin. So the biggest thing with mining Monero is going to be a GPU typically, and then CPUs can be used as well. The recognizability of Monero, I'd say it's medium. It's obviously not Bitcoin, but it is pretty damn big cryptocurrency. So what's the purpose of Monero? We already talked about. It's another digital currency. This one is specifically to provide private transactions. Scalability, again, relatively low like Bitcoin. Transactions are hidden from everyone. Does it prevent double spends? Yes. Does it support forks? Also yes, which we'll get into that as well. So clearly we can see some parallels between Bitcoin and Monero. There's definitely some differences as well. The purpose of this post isn't to say one is better than the other. I'm not going to comment on that. I'll let you make your own assumptions with that. Some people prefer Bitcoin, some people prefer Monero. There's always going to be differences there. So let's just summarize Monero real quick. Category, we said digital currency privacy. Origination was a hard fork in 2014 off of Bytecoin. Purpose, providing cryptocurrency transactions with complete privacy from both the sender and the receiver. Mining, CryptoNight, mined through proof of work. The blockchain is a dynamic blockchain, changing size as the number of XMR transactions rises or lowers. Technology, RingCT provides the groundwork for their verifiable private transactions carried out through use of key images. And wallets, we talked about, they have a desktop, web, and a ledger wallet, Ledger Nano S. Exchanges, we have Binance, Bitfinex, HitBTC, Poloniex, Livecoin, Kraken, Upbit, many more. You can check those out on CoinMarketCap. So that's everything I have for you today. I hope you found this video informative, and if you did, I would appreciate if you'd leave a subscription and a like below. If you have anything that you want to ask me about Monero, if I left anything out, please feel free to comment. I would really appreciate it. I'd love seeing comments. So that's everything I have for you guys. Please do check out the links in the description to the Brave browser, to Binance, Coinbase, Ledger Nano S if you don't already have one. Those are good to use. And I'll also include the link to the whole post on my website, monerocrypto.com. Alright, that's everything I have. Thanks so much.